Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back to another episode of Jumah Nights. I hope that the previous episodes have been beneficial with regards to exploring the importance of Aqidah with regards to death and Barzakh, and today we want to take that same angle with regards to the Day of Judgment. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So as you all know, the Day of Judgment is a topic that has been discussed in many verses of the Quran, and if we would want to go through all of those, it would require a series in and of itself. So we wouldn't be able to speak about it in the detail that is necessary. So we're only going to take one angle and again speak about the importance of Aqidah on this day. Allah says in the Quran with regards to the length of the Day of Judgment. Here the length is actually being referred to with regards to Laylatul Qadr, but in the hadith of the Imams we see that it has a strong link to the Day of Judgment. In Surah Al-Ma'arij, in verse number 4, Allah says after the Basmala, تَعْرُجُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ وَالرُّوحُ إِلَيْهِ فِي يَوْمٍ كَانَ مِقْدَارُهُ 50,000 سَنَةً. He says that the angels and the Ruh, they rise in one day. That day is the same as 50,000 years. So this is a very lengthy period of time, and we see in the ahadith, volume number 72 of Bihar al-Anwar, on page 107 from Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, أَلَا فَحَاسِبُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ قَبْلَ أَن تُحَاسَبُوا. He says, so make sure that you account for yourself in that which you do every day before you are accounted for on the Day of Judgment. The Imam says, فَإِنَّ فِي الْقِيَامَةِ 50 مَوْقِفًا كُلَّ مَوْقِفٍ مِثْلَ 1000 سَنَةً. He says that on the Day of Judgment, there are 50 phases that day goes through. 50 phases on the Day of Judgment. It is a very long day. And each mawqif, each phase is as if it is 1,000 years. مِمَّا تَعُدُّونَ. From that which you guys understand, from your understanding of what is a year. ثُمَّ تَلَى هَذِهِ الْآيَةِ في يوم كان مقداره 50,000 سنة. He says the same ayah with regards to this. So this is speaking about the Day of Judgment in that it is 50,000 years of time in that which we understand. So this is a very lengthy day, and that is why we're not able to go through that much detail with regards to the Day of Judgment. Like I said, it requires a series in and of itself, going through each of the mawaqif, speaking about each of the phases of the Day of Judgment, which would take a long time. However, it is mentioned and it is present in the narrations, and we would be able to derive these from the narrations if we were to do a series with regards to this. And there have been series done with regards to this topic, and you would be able to find them online, insha'Allah, from scholars in the Arabic language. So like I said, we're going to be shedding some light on the importance of Aqidah. We're going to speak about this topic in the following points. Number one, why do the Quran and Hadith focus on relations on the Day of Judgment? Number two, what is the importance of seeking knowledge with relation to the Day of Judgment? And number three, how important is the belief in Wilayah on the Day of Judgment? So these are the three things that we will be discussing today. We see in the ayats of the Quran that Allah constantly mentions that the familial relations that we have in this world will not be important on the Day of Judgment. Allah says in Surah Al-Mu'minun, in verse 101 to 103 after the Basmala, Allah says, فَإِذَا نُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ فَلَا أَنْسَابَ بَيْنَهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ وَلَا يَتَسَاءَلُونَ. He says that when the horn is blown, then there will be no relations between these individuals. And on that day, they will not ask about one another. فَمَنْ ثَقُلَتْ مَوَازِينُهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. So that person who comes with deeds, that person will be from those who are victorious. وَمَنْ خَفَّتْ مَوَازِينُهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ خَسِرُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ فِي جَهَنَّمَ خَالِدُونَ. For those whose deeds that they've come with are less and they are not heavy on the scales, then for them they have lost themselves to the Jahannam, to hellfire, and they will enter therein forever. So this is speaking about the relations on that day, that there are no relations left. And we have this in other places in the Quran as well, that on that day a person will run away from his companion, from his partner, from his mother, from his father, and every person on that day will only be concerned with themselves. What is really interesting when we read these ayats is that On the Day of Judgment, we have a narration from the Imams where they explain. We have a narration going back to Rasulullah mentioned by Imam al-Rida alayhi salam. And we read this in Bihar al-Anwar on volume 25. And we have this narration from Imam al-Rida alayhi salam from Rasulullah, where he said that every relationship and every lineage will be broken and forgotten on the Day of Judgment except for my lineage and for my relationships. So what we see here is that Rasulullah is mentioning that there is a relationship between him, and it is not speaking about his lineage per se. We have the narrations from Rasulullah where he says, Ana wa Ali abawa hadhihi al-ummah. Me and Ali are the fathers of this ummah. When he says that statement, when Rasulullah says, Ana wa Ali abawa hadhihi al-ummah, he's speaking in a literal sense. Like we've mentioned in our previous episodes, these things are very literal and are connected to us in this life as well. If our souls in this life have a deep connection with Rasulullah, with Ali bin Abi Talib, then on the Day of Judgment, we will feel the reality of them being our fathers, of that relationship being real. And the same way, anybody that we have developed a relationship in this world on that basis, on the basis of Rasulullah and Ali bin Abi Talib, then those individuals, their relationships with us will still be real on that Day of Judgment. On the Day of Judgment, those relations that were not real, that were not based on the Wilayah, that weren't based on the religion and our love for Rasulullah and for Amir al-Mu'mineen, then that relationship is not a real one. That was one that was restricted to the dunya. But the relationships that transcend that reality and they come through even on the Day of Judgment are those that are connected by the Wilayah. And that's why the brotherhood between the mu'minun is something that is emphasized in the Quran. إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. Indeed, the believers are but brothers. They are brothers, right? They are brothers in Wilayah. They are brothers in that thing that connects all of them. And those are the relationships that will remain real on the Day of Judgment. But those relationships that are not based on that will be the ones that filter away and no one will ask with regards to another. Whereas we see that the mu'mineen, the ones who are of the highest level, they will be the ones bringing other mu'mineen with them into paradise. They will be there thinking about their fellow mu'mineen, those who shared with them the love of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam. So that's the focus on relations. It shows that the relations that we have in this world are very, very important in that we have to make sure that the center and the core of those relations is the love of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam and the Wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam. As well as building those relations and making sure that we have strong belief in the Wilayah, it is also very important that we increase in our ma'rifah of the Imam. And that is something that is also very much emphasized on in seeking knowledge. Seeking knowledge is very, very important in that we see in this narration in Al-Kafi in volume 1. We see a narration from Mufaddal ibn Umar who narrates from Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, where Imam Sadiq says, "Alaykum bit-tafaqquh fi ad-din wa la takunu a'raba." He says that it is upon you to make sure that you learn and you study your religion, you have a good understanding of your religion, at-tafaqquh fi din. And he says, وَلَا تَكُونُوا أَعْرَابًا. Don't be like the Bedouins. Don't have a Bedouin understanding of the religion. Don't have a literalist, surface level understanding of the religion. Go into the depths of the religion. That is something that is upon you, that is wajib upon you. He says, فَإِنَّهُ مَنْ لَمْ يَتَفَقَّهْ فِي الدِّينِ لَمْ يَنْظُرِ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَلَمْ يَزُكَّ لَهُ أَمَلًا. He says that for the one who does not try to understand his religion, that doesn't try to gain tafaqquh, depth in his religion, then Allah will not look at him on the Day of Judgment. And all of his amal, all of the things that he has done will be left. It will be counted as nothing because he did not actually understand the reason why he was doing all of those things. The ilm that comes prior to that, the tafaqquh that comes prior is very, very important. The ma'rifah is the base and then the ta'ah comes after that. Without the ma'rifah, the ta'ah means nothing. Without the ta'ah, the ma'rifah means nothing. Both of them need to go hand in hand. At-tafaqquh fi din and also having the amal. right? When they come together, that is when that person becomes complete and they become a true muwahhid, as we've explained in previous episodes of ours. And this is why Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, "Ala la khayra fi ilmin laysa fihi tafahum." There is no point in knowledge that doesn't have understanding, depth of understanding within it. "Ala la khayra fi qira'atin laysa fiha tadabbur." There is no point in reading where there is no pondering that accompanies that reading. And he says, "Ala la khayra fi ibadatin laysa fiha tafakkur." There is no point in worship in which there is no thinking about that which you are doing. Every action that you do in your salah, it should not be ritualistic. And I say this to myself prior to saying that to anybody else. When we recite our prayers, are we really deeping and thinking about the meanings in this prayer? Are we incorporating it into our lives? This is why we see the hadith of the Imams, where people ask the Imams, they say to them, how do we know if our salawats are accepted or not? The Imams say, look at what you are doing outside of your prayer. If your actions have improved outside of your prayer, then know that your salah has been accepted to that amount. Because Allah says in the Quran, "Inna salat tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar." Indeed, salah wards away evil and immoral actions. So those things that go away with your salah, which are evil, that is how you know that your salah has been accepted. So this is where we see that all of those ritualistic things that we do, the salah, the psalm, all of these things are supposed to have an impact on our actions outside of that. And the same way here, we see on a very basic level that we need to have tafaqquh in our religion. We need to learn our religion and then act upon that. And that is very, very important on the Day of Judgment, because you cannot come with one of the two. You have to come with both. Then we want to move on to the discussion, which is the most important discussion of how important is the belief in Wilayah on the Day of Judgment. When we take a look at the Quran in Surah Takathur, in verses number 5 to 8 after the Basmala, Allah says, "Kalla law ta'lamuna ilma al-yaqeen." He says, nay, if you were to know that knowledge for certain, لَتَرَوُنَّ الْجَحِيمِ, that you will be shown the punishment, you'll be shown the hellfire. ثُمَّ لَتَرَوُنَّهَا عَيْنَ الْيَقِينِ, then you'll be shown it in a way that makes you certain of it. ثُمَّ لَتُسْأَلُنَّ يَوْمَئِذٍ عَنِ النَّعِيمِ, and then on that day you will be asked about the blessing, about the na'im. And in the narrations of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, this blessing that is asked about is about the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam. And we see this in many of the hadith of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam. One of the hadith that is attributed to Amir al-Mu'mineen, the hadith al-Mufakhara, where he's speaking to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam and listing his virtues. He mentions that many of the ayats of the Quran that mention this, where they are asked about the na'im, they are said, وَقِفُوهُمْ إِنَّهُمْ مَسْئُولُونَ, stop them, they are responsible and they are accountable to answer for something. And the Imam says, it is about my wilayah that they will be asked. The Quran is filled with verses with regards to the accountability that each individual will have on the Day of Judgment with regards to the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and that includes the Shia, because everybody will be asked to their understanding and their level. Those from us who are the Shia and have been exposed to the truth, and we have been exposed to the light of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam and to their ahadith, if we are not able to take those teachings and to translate them into our actions, we are more accountable than those people who have not been exposed to the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen to its highest extent. We spoke about in our last episode, those people who sleep till the Day of Judgment, those people will be tested on that Day of Judgment with the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen. If they are to accept it to a greater extent than we have been able to for the extent of our whole lives, that individual is greater than us on the Day of Judgment. If they're able to accept the wilayah wholeheartedly in a way that we have not been able to accept it. So it is not that we should think that having the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen or saying that we have the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen means that we are going to be going to Jannah straight away. This is something that is a responsibility and something that we need to actually work on. We've been given the gift of being exposed to the truth and to the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen is something that we need to use as a tool in order for us to elevate our ranks and be from those that are able to answer this question when we are asked about the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and we are able to say that we fulfilled our duties towards that wilayah. Then we have a narration from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam It's narrated from Imam Musa al-Kadhim towards Rasulullah. Rasulullah says that the foot of a servant will not move on the day of judgment a step except that he'll be asked about four. And umrihi fima afna. He says he will be asked firstly about his life, how he spent it, and his youth, how he used it, and his wealth, how he got his wealth and what he used it in, and about our love Ahlul Bayt. So every single step he'll be asked about these four things, and these are the four things that are the most important that you'll be asked about in every step on the day of judgment, and of course about the love of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and their wilayah. So this is something that is very, very important on the day of judgment. With regards to how we spend our lives, each of these four things should have a foundation of the love of Ahlul Bayt. When we say how we've spent our lives, what is better than to be able to say, I spent my life serving Imam Sahib al-Zaman. I spent my life being a khadim of Imam al-Hussein. And when he's asked about his youth and how he used it, what is better than to say, I spent my youth in the service of the Imams. I spent my youth organizing majalis. I spent my youth serving the servants of Imam al-Hussein. I spent my youth using my strength to serve the Imam of my time, in strategizing, in making sure that I have prepared the ground for the Imam of my time. What is a better answer than that? And with regards to the wealth, to be able to say, I spent my wealth in the mawaqib of Imam al-Hussein. I spent my wealth in giving food to the zawar of Imam al-Hussein. I spent my wealth creating financial centers within our Shia communities, making sure that the youth of Imam Sahib al-Zaman have a financial base. I spent my wealth ensuring that I prepared for the Imam of my time, in using my wealth towards the strategy that goes towards the preparation towards the Imam of our time. I used my wealth militarily. What is a better answer than all of these things is the hubb of Ahlul Bayt. That is the foundation of all of these things, and is the best answer that you can give to all of these things when asked about them on the day of judgment. And that is the importance of the wilayah on the day of judgment, that each of the four things that you are asked about, if you respond with Ahlul Bayt, Ahlul Bayt, Ahlul Bayt, then those are the best answers that you can respond with. And that would be a show of your love to the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. And then we see the narrations with regards to the high ranks and the elevation that the Shia, the true Shia, I'm not speaking about anybody that calls themselves Shia, including myself. I'm speaking about the true Shia. We talk about the likes of Salman, of Abu Dhar. And those are stations that we should aspire to reach as well, of the highest level of the Shia. And these are stations that we are expected to reach. As we have always said, the Imams have set us up for the Shia of the end of times to be the greatest of all people. So this is the narrations that speak about the status of those Shia on the day of judgment. We have a narration from Muhammad ibn Muslim al-Thaqafi, from Imam al-Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam. He mentions from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, who said, indeed, upon the right of the Arsh, there will be a people who their faces are of nur, ala manabir min nur, upon mimbars, upon pulpits of light. يغبطهم النبيون, even the prophets will be jealous of them. ليسوا بأنبياء ولا شهداء, they're not prophets, nor are they shuhada. They're not people that have been martyred. And this is not speaking about martyrs like in our eyes. You see, when we see someone pass away, we call them a shaheed, or if someone is killed in battle and we call them a shaheed, and we say that they are shaheed in our eyes. This is the shaheed, but in the eyes of Allah and the Rasul, this is the highest level of shuhada. So they will be asked, Rasulullah will be asked, Ya Nabi Allah, وَمَا ازْدَادُوا هَؤُلَاء مِنَ اللَّهِ إِذَا لَمْ يَكُونُوا أَنْبِيَاء وَلَا شُهَدَاء إِلَّا قُرْبًا مِنَ اللَّهِ. He says, they ask Rasulullah, so how are these individuals on the right of the Arsh with faces of nur, upon manabir of nur, and they're not even prophets or shuhada? What is it about them that has made them this special and have such a elevated status on the day of judgment? The Rasulullah responds, أُولَٰئِكَ شِيَةُ عَلِيٍّ وَعَلِيٌّ إِمَامُهُمْ. He says that those are the Shia of Ali ibn Abi Talib, and Ali is their Imam. That is the station that they will have on the day of judgment. This is for the true Shia, those who have reached those high stations that we should all aspire to reach. This is the level that the Shia will be on the Day of Judgment for those who had true belief in the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam and they had taqwa. And we see it mentioned here that it is emphasized that Ali is their Imam. Because on the Day of Judgment, we see this emphasis on the Imam even in the Quran. We see that Allah says in the Quran in verses 71 and 72 of Surah Al-Isra, Allah says, يَوْمَ نَدْعُو كُلَّ أُنَاسٍ بِإِمَامِهِمْ فَمَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابُهُ بِيَمِينِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ يَقْرَؤُونَ كِتَابُهُمْ وَلَا يُظْلَمُونَ فَتِيلًا. He says that on that day we will call each and every people with their Imam. And that person who is given his book in his right hand, then they will read their book and they will not be shown any pain or suffering on that day. وَمَنْ كَانَ فِي هَذِهِ أَعْمَى فَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ أَعْمَى وَأَضَلُّ سَبِيلًا. He says, and for those who are blind in this world, in this dunya, then they're blind in the akhirah as well. And they are completely and utterly misguided. These are individuals who are blind to the imamah, to the wilayah. They are blind to the importance of the Ahlul Bayt and the importance of the imam of their time. You see, that's the context that it comes in. That they will be called with the imam of their time. Who is the imam of your time in your heart? That is the individual that you will be brought forth with on the Day of Judgment. If you don't have a true imam in this world, and you have taken false imams, whether that be anything else that you place in your mind at the position of the imam. And we mentioned this in our previous episodes as well. We spoke about the idea of batriya, those who mix and match between the truth and the falsehood, and the evolving of that term in the end of times, whereby the people will be confused ideologically and they will be mixing between truth and falsehood without knowing that they are doing so. And they will have moved away from the Imam of their time and the idea that the Imam will rise after his remembrance is forgotten. So those people who actually think the Imam of their time is Imam Sahibul Zaman have in reality forgotten his remembrance, and they have apostated in him while still mentioning on their mouths and their tongues that this is the Imam of our time. But in reality, he is not the Imam of their time. He does not connect to them and they have no connection to him, and they are on a mission that is completely against the Imam of their time. These kinds of individuals, they are blind. They are a'ma in this world and they will be a'ma in the akhirah. They will be blind. This is what the Quran says about those who don't understand the Imam that they should follow. They don't recognize the Imam that they should follow. They don't have ma'rifah of the Imam of their time. We have a narration from Fudayl ibn Yasar from Imam al-Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam. I'm reading from volume number 8 of Bihar al-Anwar, page number 11. He mentions that he asked Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam with regards to this ayah, يَوْمَ نَدْعُ كُلَّ أُنَاسٍ بِإِمَامِهِمْ. The Imam responded, يَجِيءُ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ فِي قَوْمِهِ وَعَلِيٌّ فِي قَوْمِهِ وَالْحَسَنُ فِي قَوْمِهِ وَالْحُسَيْنُ فِي قَوْمِهِ وَكُلُّ مَنْ مَاتَ بَيْنَ ظَهْرَانِيَ إِمَامًا جَاءَ مَعَهُ. He says that Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam will return with his Shia, Imam al-Hassan will return with his Shia, Imam al-Hussein, and so on, going up to the 12th Imam. Whoever lived during the time of an Imam, he will be raised with that Imam as long as he believed in him and he was obedient to him. And we see in the Quran with regards to false Imams, those who try to put themselves on the position of the Imam and what their state will be on the Day of Judgment. Allah says, وَيَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ تَرَى الَّذِينَ كَذَبُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ وُجُوهُهُمْ مُسْوَدَّةٌ أَلَيْسَ فِي جَهَنَّمَ مَثْوًى لِلْمُتَكَبِّرِينَ. He says, and on the Day of Judgment you will see those who lied upon Allah, their faces have been darkened. Indeed, is there not a place in Jahannam for those who are prideful, who are arrogant about themselves? They think that they are on that level. They think that they are in the position of the Imams, and they force themselves into that position. Those people are called the arrogant and the prideful. These are the false Imams. And we see the hadiths with regards to this as well. We have a narration in Al-Kafi, volume 1, from Hussein ibn Mukhtar. He says that I said to Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, جُعِلْتُ فِدَاكَ وَيَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ تَرَى الَّذِينَ كَذَبُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ. He asked him with regards to the ayah of the Quran that we just read right now. The Imam says, كُلُّ مَنْ زَعَمَ أَنَّهُ إِمَامٌ وَلَيْسَ بِإِمَامٍ. He says, for those people who claim that they are Imams and they are not Imams. قُلْتُ وَإِنْ كَانَ فَاطِمِيًّا عَلَوِيًّا. He says, even if that individual is from the lineage of Fatima and Ali. And the Imam responded saying, وَإِنْ كَانَ فَاطِمِيًّا عَلَوِيًّا. We see that this is a problem that we have faced at the time of the Imams with those who faked their Imamah. And even in our time, there are those who take the position of the Imam and they are from these very lineages. And we see this idea in the riwayat with regards to those that speak about the ends of times, that there are Dajjalun from Bani Fatima. There are those who are imposters from the sons of Fatima. And they are ones that we need to always be aware of, because a lot of the time they are within our circles, within the Shia circles, and they are able to confuse people in such a way that the Shia are not able to recognize that they are confused. Then we see in the Quran the discussion with regards to the highest ranking from the Shia. We see in Surah Al-Rahman, Allah says in verse number 39 after the Basmala, فَيَوْمَئِذٍ لَا يُسْأَلُ عَنْ ذَنْبِهِ إِنسٌ وَلَا جَانٌ. On that day, no human or jinn will be asked with regards to their sin. That sounds like a really strange ayah. What do you mean that nobody is going to be asked about their sins or their good deeds? Like, what's the point then? Who's going to be punished on the Day of Judgment? And only the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam are those who have the answer to this question. We have a narration mentioned in Fadail al-Shia by Shaykh al-Saduq. He mentions a narration from Imam Rida alayhi salatu wasalam where he says, Wallahi la yara minkum fi nari ithnan la wallah wala wahid. He says, I swear by Allah, none of you will see another two of you in the hellfire. He says, nay, rather not even one. So the companion asked Imam Rida alayhi salam, he says, قال قلت فأين ذلك من كتاب الله. Where is this mentioned in the Kitab of Allah? قال فأمسك عني سنة. The Imam didn't respond to him for a year. And then the companion says, فإنني معه ذات يوم في الطواف إذ قال لي يا ميسر اليوم أذن لي في جوابك عن مسألتك. The Imam says, after a year, while he was in tawaf with him, going around the Kaaba, he says that now I have been permitted to be able to give you the answer to your question. So the companion still remembers his question. He says, قلت فأين هو من القرآن. Where is it mentioned in the Quran? The Imam says, قال في سورة الرحمن وهو قول الله عز وجل فيومئذ لا يسأل عن ذنبه منكم إنس ولا جان فقلت له ليس فيه منكم. The Imam says, on that day, none from you will be asked about his sins. So the individual, he says that the Quran doesn't say the word minkum, it doesn't say from you. And the Imam says, إِنَّ أَوَّلَ مَنْ غَيَّرَهَا ibn Arwa. He says that the one who changed its meaning, its understanding, was the son of Arwa, and is speaking about the third caliph. And then he says, وَلَوْ لَمْ يَكُنْ فِيهَا مِنْكُمْ لَسَقَطَ إِقَابَ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ عَنْ خَلْقِهِ إِذْ لَمْ يُسْأَلْ عَنْ ذَنْبِهِ إِنْسٌ وَلَا جَانٌ فَلِمَنْ يُعَاقَبْ إِذًا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. He says that if there was no minkum in this ayah, if that understanding was not there, then all of the punishment of Allah would just be in waste on the Day of Judgment. If nobody is going to be asked about their sins, then who's going to be punished on the Day of Judgment? So we see that this ayah is speaking actually with regards to those who are the Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam, that they don't get asked about their sins. Those obviously who are high in taqwa, those who are actually high in their level of wilayah, and they fulfilled that wilayah to their imams. And we see in another hadith in the same volume on page 201, where we see a narration from Imam al-Sadiq, narrating from Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, where Imam al-Baqir says, on the Day of Judgment, ينادي مناد يوم القيامة أين المحبون لعلي. A caller will call out on the Day of Judgment. He will say, where are those who love Ali ibn Abi Talib? فيقومون من كل فج عميق. So they will stand from where they are in the deepest parts. فيقال لهم من أنتم. So they will be asked, who are you? قالوا نحن المحبون لعلي عليه السلام الخالصون له حبا. And they will say that we are the lovers of Amir al-Mu'mineen. We are sincere in our love towards Amir al-Mu'mineen. فيقال فتشركون في حبه أحدا من الناس. Are you from those who share the love of Amir al-Mu'mineen with other people from the people? فَيَقُولُونَ لَا. They will say, no, we don't share our love for Amir al-Mu'mineen with anyone else. فَيُقَالُ لَهُمْ إِدْخَلُوا الْجَنَّةَ أَنْتُمْ وَأَزْوَاجُكُمْ تَحْبَرُونَ. He says, it is said to them, enter Jannah, you and your partners, your companions, your wives, without having been asked about their sins, without having been accounted for their sins. So you see, this is the status of the Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen, those who are the true Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And this is where we see the importance of Aqeedah on the Day of Judgment. As the Imams alayhi salam say, we are all arcs of salvation, and the quickest of them is the arc of Hussein. This is why we should enable ourselves, because the things that we are the most connected to as average Shia, as emotional people and those who love our Imams, the things that we are the most connected to are the rituals and the sadness that we feel for Imam al-Hussein in Muharram. This is something that is universal for all of the Shia, and that should be our entrance or our vessel towards ma'rifah of the Imam of our time. And that's why we should focus our attention on these individuals. And as we are in the month of the birth of these magnificent individuals like Imam al-Hussein, like al-Abbas, like Imam Zayn al-Abidin, and like Imam al-Mahdi, all of them have a unique connection to Karbala. They have a unique connection to the anguish and the sadness that we feel when we think into Muharram. And that is something that's so beautiful if you think about it, that all of these individuals, they are all born in the same month. And that is an indication to us that we should use this month to not only be happy for their wiladat and congratulate each other on their births, but also remember their deeper connection and their mission, and the mission of Ashura and of Karbala. So I hope that's been a beneficial series for you with regards to death and Barzakh. Of course, we haven't been able to cover a lot with regards to the details of, for example, of Barzakh, of the Day of Judgment, and that is just because of the sheer amount of content with regards to these topics. So we've really focused on the importance of Aqeedah in these three aspects, in the aspect of the removal of the soul, in the aspect of the Barzakh, and in the Day of Judgment. Insha'Allah, we're going to be taking a little bit of a break on Jumah Nights, and we'll be back again in Shahr Ramadan with a new feel, basically, of Jumah Nights, where we'll be starting a new series with regards to the tafsir of the Quran. And Insha'Allah, we'll be doing it in a way that you probably haven't heard before. Insha'Allah, I'll see you again for that. When I see you, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.